Councillor Hewitt.
Yes, Madam Chair. A proposed rail field trip to Wairoa.
Thank you. Is that the only item you've got, Councillor Hewitt?
I don't have an item. It's
Sorry.
just every time this comes up, it's minor items for the Environment and Services Committee, and I think it should be amended in our template. Second line.
Talking minor items? Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry, I was going off the front of the agenda. Yep, I'm with you.
The heading in the top of the page.
Yeah, right. Thank you for correcting that. Okay, Councillor Dick, were there any other, we've got one, are there any other? Yep. Councillor Barker, you were joking, I'm assuming.
I was just a few minutes.
Yeah. Mr. Maori.
So the email we were passed from Councillor Belford to Gavin at the start of the meeting, was that part of the other part?
No, it was just to point out the process through conflict of interest.
Oh. So it's
Not
finished.
no, it's not.
Chair, there.
So you didn't have a minor item you wanted to put on there? Yep.
Yeah, minor item, environmental flows in the RWSS, which I'm quite interested to ask a couple of questions around.
The environmental flows in the RWSS. And I've got one, and that is Hiratoki research report back. No other items? In which case, we will turn to Mr. Mohi and ask him to update us on the Maori Committee meeting from yesterday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The main subject yesterday was seeking opinions from the Maori Council as to the continuation of the Maori Council, Maori Committee, sorry.
I like the elevation.
It's all in perception, of course. The Maori Committee has been around since the early 1990s, and there was the talk amongst ourselves that perhaps it's run its course. Viv Mole put 2 or 3 options yesterday, which included doing away with the Maori Committee and perhaps having a equivalent of a liaison officer based in Napier, but going out to the 4 tai whenua to once a month to ask them what about their problems. However, to cut to the chase, the Maori Committee yesterday decided to recommend that the Council carry the Maori Committee for another till the end of this particular term, and during that time the Maori Committee themselves will be contributing advice and I was going to say speculation, that's the wrong word, as to the feasibility of the current state of the Maori Committee. One of the main reasons being that Māoridom in Kahungunu is very much at the crossroads with the claimant groups. We perceive that over the next 3 years, the last of them will have received the payments, which involve $340 million in the Hawke's Bay Regional Council area and probably $150 million just on the outside, which is still covered by Ngāti Kahungunu. So, and during that time, the claimant groups, and indeed Nikki and the Tai Whenua, are liable to morph into something else. And you may think that some of my criticism has been around Nikki, but it's just to bring you up to speed in terms of what Nikki is about. In their office, they have, similar to this, they have scientists, they have experts, which actually none of the claimant groups have, per se. And yesterday, Mike Paku said, look, if we're to set up an office, this is going to cost us a hang of a lot of money out of the claimants. Aren't we better to work something about ourselves? So whether it's called Nikki, or it's called Dickie, or it's called Rexy, it's really immaterial, because we have limitations on how many Māori at the higher level to handle the all the things that the MOUs that these claimant groups are bringing up. And the MOUs actually involve education agreements, health agreements, environmental agreements. And it would be silly to have 7 of these around. And how does somebody like the Regional Council and indeed the territorials deal with Māori concerns? So which probably rolls on to the... that was a recommendation from the Māori Committee, that the Māori Committee to you as a council do carry on for the full term, which is another 2.5 years. We also realise that the big elephant in the room, the black elephant, is amalgamation. And so we sort of set that aside and said, well, if it happens, it happens. The concerns, of course, is what happens to the Māori voice. Along those lines, there has been concern over the 13 years that I've been involved with the Māori Committee about the lack of Māori staff. And so the recommendation is that there be an increased effort to put Māori at all levels of the staff. I think we're quite covered at the making the cups of tea and the cleaner group. We're thinking of middle management, etc. And also as a recommendation that somebody of the real senior management in terms of Māoridom be appointed. So, and with covering Māori staff. In 1989, I took the place of the sacked Māori teacher at Central Hawke's Bay College. We had 900 students at that time, and as the only Māori teacher on the staff, I became Mr. Everything. And the woodwork teacher would ask me something, and the request from the English teacher, the history teacher, etc. And I said, well, you're only covering one section, you expect me to cover the whole of Māoridom. So this is one of the problems if you just drop one Māori into a Pākehā type organisation, that they do feel very isolated and they have huge expectations from their own people. Yeah, that was probably about it. There were a couple of very important papers. One from Helen Codlin about planning for the development for the long-term plan, and the committee thought that this was an opportunity to take their concerns about lack of Māori staff at senior levels through. Also, we had yesterday 2 young people, Takaha Hakawairangi and his sister Hinewai, give an excellent hapu management plan for the Tūtai Kuri. And TK, the young man, is a member of the staff who's come through DOC and Ngāwhana processes. And we see him as, you know, a shining light of somebody in their 30s, slightly older than myself, younger than myself, sorry, has been very capable of, you know, pushing the older ones aside, as it were, on the Māori Committee. So just looking around the Māori Committee yesterday, I think there's 6 of them that are 70 and over. And in that respect, it's Roger Marker's birthday today, 70. Roger's 10 years older than me, yes.
No, he's not.
And the other thing, and yesterday was of quite interest to me particularly, was the RMA section 35A, and the young lady was Esther Amy Bate, and she, like most councils, who do we talk to? And this is a huge problem for somebody as earnest as herself, really wanting to do well. And she mentioned a name in talking to the Napier Maori, and I saw the Ahuriri constituents just roll their eyes and say, what the hell are you talking to him for? So my advice, anything along that line, would be talk to the claimant groups and ask them who the hapu, etc., they should be talking to, because it's terribly confusing for very hard-working, well-meaning staff. So any questions, Madam Chair? Oh.
Watching you. Slight on my masculinity there. Any questions? Councillor Belford.
But a comment from observing that discussion, which I'd make here, because if I made it there, it probably would be denounced as politically incorrect. But there was a lot of discussion about representation without much discussion of the accompanying responsibility to be properly equipped to participate effectively. And this little example of the lady that wanted to know basically they pulled all the councils together, the Maori advisors on the councils, to try to get a picture of how could we better get on top of who gets talked to when on what issues and so forth. And it seems like that we have a planning committee, we have a Maori committee, the other councils have committees, et cetera, et cetera. We now have substantial resources being put at the disposal of treaty claimant groups. In the past, we have funded some Maori groups to better equip them to represent their concerns to us. But it seems to me what I wasn't hearing in any of that discussion was we on the Maori side of the table need a work plan that would get us on a path to equipping ourselves to effectively represent ourselves in these decisions versus just make sure I have a seat at the table when the time comes. And I don't know how that happens, but it just didn't seem to be something that was being contemplated or recognized, or maybe I'm misspeaking, but could you just comment on that a bit?
No, I don't take offence at that at all, and it's quite right. Unfortunately, at Māoridom, you've got a thin strata at the so-called top, whether they're kaumātua or advisors, and they're overworked. And the likes of Ngahiwi as an example, he probably works 100+ hours a week, and myself, and similar. There's always somebody who wants advice. And then you talk to one group, and they say, "Oh, they're not." The next group says, "Oh, they don't, talk for us." It's a minefield, and I felt very sorry for Amy yesterday. There's no short answer to that, Tom, and except I use examples like when Parakura was our MP. He had one of the biggest electorates, and before him was Te Rakatani, did the whole of so-called Southern Māori and the whole of the South Island, and people say, "Oh, so-and-so is not talking to me." This is just in Hawke's Bay here. Well, what about Parakura? Did we say that to him? You're not representing me. Go back to Tolaga Bay. We have to get over ourselves as Māori. There's no doubt about it. We've got to get over ourselves, and people have to make decisions. And if I go back to the dam debate, I was part of several meetings in Heratonga, and there was more regional council staff there than Māori. And so it just it's very difficult to get grassroots people there to accept that there is stratas, and stratas is not a Pākehā thing. Māori have had it all along. It's just there's no simple answer. We just keep struggling away, I suppose.
Councillor Barker.
Could I say that I've had some limited experience in this area, in that I have been involved in negotiations between iwi and the regional council in Taranaki, and feeling your way forward on these things is incredibly challenging. The main reason is that you don't know what you don't know, and you're never going to know it all. And I thought the Taranaki Regional Council made a very smart decision in that it employed specifically a Maori liaison officer whose job it is to go and talk to all the various iwi groups on behalf of the Regional Council and advise the Regional Council, the Chief Executive and senior staff about the upcoming issues and be their guide for them full time. That's his job. And I could see that the Regional Council in Taranaki went from coping and doing okay on these issues to being very well informed. Now, I think this is something that we should be looking to do because as Mike has made the point to us over and over again, and he is absolutely right, Maori are reorganising themselves. The shape that they're in today, Mike's made the point, I don't want to speak on it, is the shape will be different tomorrow, next year, 20 years' time. And we are not going to be able to keep up with this ourselves. And if we're going to engage in a meaningful relationship with Maori, as I think we must and should do, then we're going to have to invest in having the resource to do that. And I think that's part of what has been said. Now, as for the amount of money that Māori have got in treaty settlements, I don't agree with Māori using that for their consultation with the Regional Council. That is for a specific reason, historic grievances, and it must be spent on that in a way that's deemed for them. If we want to build our relationship with Māori, that's for us to invest in and deal with that. And I think this is an issue that we should have down for the next annual plan, that we should have do some policy work on this, and we should liaise with all the various groups and say, how do you want us to best engage and put resource in to liaising with Māori in the long term? This is just one solution the Taranaki Regional Council have come up with. There might be other solutions. Let's not be prescriptive, but say we're open to it. And I agree with Mike on that. We need to be open to it.
Happy to
Mr.
move?
Chairman, before I do, I was at that meeting yesterday, and what I heard was the suggestion coming from them was something quite different from the liaison officer. I think the important thing is actually that the Maori Committee formulate back through the annual plan, the long-term planning, which is, I understand what they will be doing, what their expectations are, and we need to be listening to what they bring forward in the way of a solution to this. So I think it's a case of waiting till we hear back from them something more formal through the long-term and participation in the long-term plan process.
Councillor Dick.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure whether the 6 new councillors or all of them are fully aware of the responsibilities and range of work that Mike Mohi does for this organisation. And
good point.
It goes far beyond being the chair of the Maori Committee. Maybe he should chat to them sometime.
Pardon? That's right. And delivered it back.
Happy to move that it be received. We have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Belford.
Well, just before that, as you know, I work for Ngāwhina a ministerial ecological group, and we covenanted an area overlooking Te Araroa, which is up there past Tiki Tiki. I was standing with Koro Jews, who's since passed on, extremely gifted speaker and well-known Ngāti Pro man in his late 70s at the time. And he said, look, when we have the covenant signing formally, would you bring the chairman, Tumu Te Hauhau? And I said, well, what date? And he told me, and I said, well, I know Tumu's got another date. And I said, but Kevin Prime, who's on the Environmental Court as a commissioner, you know him, don't you? And he said, yes, he's from Ngāpui, isn't he? And he said, he can't come. And I said, why not? He said, his people slaughtered our people down there on the beaches. When was that? 1855, and we've never forgotten.
Okay, mover, you wish to speak further? Seconder? No. Any other speakers? On that talk of slaughter, I think I better move it pretty quick. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Fixing the common seal.